Improvisation is conversation, question and answer. These are essential elements to what I think gives us the most organized soloing, and that's what I want to talk about in this lesson video. So one of the things that I think of when I am thinking of intermediate players, now I'm talking about players that know the right chords and know the right notes of chords and scales. You're not missing the chord changes. You're able to play language over the chords properly. So you're not necessarily a beginner, but now you're trying to get to the next level after saying, okay, well, I know what to play over C minor 7. I know what to play over B flat major 7. How do I break onto the next level? And to me, the thing that I hear lacking most is organization. And when I say organization, I mean one idea flowing into the next in a thoughtful way. Oftentimes, it will sound like players are just plugging in bits of information, plugging in vocabulary right next to each other. And I liken it to any language, because if we're saying improvisation is conversation and licks are vocabulary, improvising jazz is a language, right? So oftentimes it's as though I hear people putting sentences together with big, great words, but they're not organized. So you don't have sentences that make sense. It's like you're just jamming together impressive words without actually having them have anything to mean with the other ones. So you need to get out of the habit of thinking of your solo in terms of the very next chord or the very next change, or let me get to the end of this 8 bars. You need to start planning out your solo's entire shape or your entire arc of your solo. You want to zoom out and start to think in larger sections, not bar by bar, chord by chord. But when I say plan your solo's shape, there is actually an exercise that you can do where you draw an abstract line on a piece of paper like this, any kind of squiggly line you can. And then you take a look at what you have and you say, all right, starts here, goes up, oh, now it goes way down and stays there for a while and then comes back up. Now, if you saw that shape as a solo, could you play your solo with that shape? You'd start quiet, you'd get quiet, you'd build it up, you'd get quiet, you'd stay down in there, and then you'd end it with more intensity. So that is one example of an exercise where you can challenge yourself to solo over different shapes and different arcs. And one of the most common effective shapes that we have is a simple arc of a solo where you start soft. You're playing less notes, your dynamics are soft, maybe less intensity. And then as you take a chorus, 2 choruses, you build. The rhythm section is now getting into it with you. You're building intensity, volume, and maybe you just stay up there and leave it there for the next soloist to start their solo with high energy and keep going. Or maybe you say you build it up here and then right at the end, you kind of take the wave and you let it wash away so the next soloist gets kind of a clean slate to begin with. But just thinking in terms of having a shape to your solo, an arc to your solo, is going to give you that greater organizational sound, right? And of course, we want one idea to flow into the next. And another great way to do that is encouraging a musical dialogue. And what I mean when I say musical dialogue, that goes right back to improvisation, is conversation, right? We need the rhythm section to get in on the fun. We do not want the drummer, bass player, pianist, and guitarist to just be a human background track. They are not Band in a Box. They're not iRealBook. They're not Abersalds. We want them to get in on the fun. So how do you do that? The easiest way to get the rhythm section to hop on in is very simple. Are you ready for this? Stop playing. That's right. Take the horn out of your mouth. Take your hands away from the keyboard. Take them off the guitar. Stop playing and simply listen. A lot of times you hear jazz instructors, you hear people say, leave space, leave space. But that's all they say. They don't tell you what you should be doing while you're leaving space. That absence of sound doesn't mean you should go wander off and think about, what you're going to eat on the set break or what you want to drink. You should be listening intently. Listen for what the comping instruments are doing. Listen if the drummer plays any kind of hit or any kind of rhythm that is going to inspire you to play something spontaneous, to take your solo in a different direction, to change the shape, to change the arc. So we have to encourage ourselves when we say leave space and when we say don't solo, that doesn't mean that you have to just aimlessly wander. That means listen incredibly intently for what's happening, because you're giving that space so that the piano player, the guitar player, the bass player, the drummer, they may jump in. They might say, hey, he's given us a chance to talk. This isn't a one-way conversation. What can we say? What can we do? And when we start talking about this conversation, once you start to get the rhythm section involved and they are kind of having that interplay with you, they are connected, right? We're always connected here. This jazz language connects all of us. Once you are now communicating with the rhythm section, now it's your job to start making sense, right? We want to get back to that organization. And for me, one of the most common ways that I know someone is really being thoughtful about their phrasing is something that I call question and answer phrasing. And that is when you want to have one idea accompany another. So you could try phrasing in pairs. And so we're going to experiment with that now. And that's almost the difference between soloing like this. All the things you are, right? And that was good. That sounded nice, but that was just information. That was just notes and chords coming out. I wasn't really thinking about it too much. I didn't play any wrong notes, but there wasn't really a thought behind it. Now, what if question and answer phrasing? What if I did this? All of a sudden now the listener brings themselves closer, you know? Everyone is dialed in because they're hearing these repetitive phrases. They're hearing these ideas that you are building on, these quick little musical phrases that are stacked on top of each other. And that just builds intensity and energy and intrigue into your solo. So when I say question and answer, you think of all the great melodies, right? We need to solo in a more melodic way because every great melody is made up of these question and answer phrases. We're currently looking at All the Things You Are, right? Right? You can almost hear the question. Ba-da, the answer. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-dee. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-dee. Ba-da. Right? So it just makes so much sense. We think of every beautiful melody from the standard repertoire. They're always written in this way where the phrases are going together with each other. And one of the ways we can experiment with these different types of question and answer phrasing are using parallel movement, contrary motion. Let me show you parallel movement. That means you take a phrase, let's solo over All the Things You Are. Right? So I just took that phrase and I literally moved it as it stands according to the chords. And that is certainly a viable way to create these little patterns and to create some repetition. But you can also use contrary motion, which is basically the way that we ask a question, how our sentence ends going up. When you give the answer, it always ends coming down. Are you going to go to the grocery store today? I think I will go to the grocery store today. So we want to do that with our lines. So right? So the question of the phrase was going up. And when I answered that phrase with the response, it wasn't necessarily the same phrase, but the shape of it was da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da-da, if that makes sense, right? So we're always trying to get back to melody, right? We're trying to solo in a melodic way. And one of the things that I always tell beginning improvisers is to always have the original melody of the song in their mind, in their head. Don't ever let the melody leave, because that will always be your guide. And when you think of a great melody, why is it so singable? Why is it a great melody? It's because the phrases are relating to one another. Why does that have to be such a revelation of a concept when we're improvising, when we're soloing? We should be able to do that too, right? So another exercise you can do is create these little phrase themes that are revisited periodically through the solo. And I think of some of the great hard boppers and beboppers. They would play an idea or play a phrase at the very beginning of their solo. And they would play for 2, 3, 4, 5 courses. And then the very last thing they say is a revisiting of that first phrase or that first idea that they played. And it just kind of ties a neat little bow on your solo. And it also shows the listener and the band that you're thinking about it because, oh wow, he was so present in the moment, he remembered to bring back this idea from the beginning. It's not just a continuous stream of language and vocabulary and words and solos, licks, da-da-da, right? You have some thought behind it. That's how we kind of get to the deeper level of improvisation. So you might be saying, hey, I've never really tried to solo in this way before. How can I do it? Well, here's the exercise. Force yourself to solo on just one idea throughout an entire chorus of a standard tune. And when I say one idea, it can be a short melodic phrase, it can be something intervallically, it can be something with articulation, it can be as simple as playing short notes or playing long legato connected notes. Whatever this kind of idea means to you, you just have to carry that through longer sections and training yourself to just do it with one idea. And then maybe say, I'll let myself do 2 ideas this chorus, these kind of things. This is going to force us to really stretch one idea as far as we can before we give up on it and start on a fresh one. Because we don't want our solo to just be continuous ideas, right? So I'm going to give you an example. We're going to stick with all the things you are. Right? So for me, this little phrase, this little idea, it involved that little appoggiatura, that little turn. And I made that work for a whole chorus. Now, was every bar perfect? Was it as maybe fluid as me just kind of playing lines and playing all the licks I've already learned? Of course not, right? There were some genuine moments of where I maybe was losing track of a chord, I was getting tripped up, I was playing the wrong thing. But guess what? That's improvisation, that's spontaneity. That gets us outside of just plugging in the vocabulary that we've learned. Now we're creating something in the moment. And sometimes those moments where you kind of are staring over the ledge and you're saying, oh gosh, what is the next chord? I'm waiting to hear it. That's where you take the horn off, you stop playing and you listen, because maybe you're going to get inspired by something else happening in the band, right? So I'm just going to give you one more example of this exercise where we're sticking to one idea throughout an entire chorus, right? And this time, I'm going to limit myself to one idea for each section. So first A, I'm going to give myself one idea. I'm going to let myself start a new idea, a new phrase, a second phrase, bridge, so on and so forth. Here's what it might sound like. Right, that was one idea. Now here's the next part. I'll start a new idea. Right, that was more of an articulation idea. Here we go, bridge, different idea. Right, that was some false fingering. That was one idea. Now the last A, here we go, new idea. right? Again, so that wasn't the cleanest thing I've ever played. I was reaching, right? I was kind of searching. I was trying to find something. But you can see how these different ideas, they might be a shape. It might just not be the exact notes that you are using parallel motion to move through the changes, but it might just be the essence of an idea. All of these things are meant to just increase our solo's kind of IQ, right? We want a solo that is intelligent. We want to be slick, of course. And so you can try to get more out of your ideas. Try to live with them and breathe with them a little bit more. Connect them, because again, jazz in this language connects all of us.